Shalom everyone, I hope you're all doing great. Welcome to another episode of Ba'al Shem Tov Stories. Don't forget that sharing stories of Ba'al Shem Tov Ha'Kadosh on Motzei Shabbat at Melaveh Malkah is a big segulah for livelihood. Once upon a time, there was a plague in the town of Majibush, where Ba'al Shem Tov Ha'Kadosh lived. And no matter what people did, the plague wouldn't stop. A lot of people were dying. So the Chassidic went to Ba'al Shem Tov Ha'Kadosh and asked him for a solution. The Ba'al Shem Tov said, go to such and such town, find such and such man, and don't leave him alone until he promises you that the plague is gonna stop. The Chassidim thought with themselves, wow, this must be a very big Tzaddik that Ba'al Shem Tov is sending us to him. They listened to him. They went to that town and they started to ask people, do you know a Tzaddik named such and such? They said, your Rebbe must have made a mistake. We don't have such a Tzaddik living here. Until one of the townspeople told them, wait a minute, are you speaking about this drunkard? We don't have a Tzaddik with that name, but we have a drunkard with that name. That was a surprise. So they went to the house of the drunkard and knocked the door. The wife opened the door and she was surprised. Are you sure you're looking for my husband? Because he's either drunk or sleeping. He just wakes up sometimes to drink another bottle of wine and goes back to sleep. They said, yes, please, we need to speak with your husband. The Ba'al Shem Tov Ha'Kadosh has sent us. He told us not to leave your husband until he promises us that the plague is gonna stop. The wife let them in, and they sat there waiting for the husband to wake up. After he woke up, he wanted to kick them out, but they begged him, please, Ba'al Shem Tov has sent us. Promise us that the plague will stop soon. The man didn't understand what was going on. He tried to send them away. Give me my bottle of wine, I want to drink. They said, no, please, promise us that the plague is gonna stop soon. The drunkard, dying for another bottle of wine, got frustrated and said, okay, the plague will stop soon. Mission accomplished. The Chassidim headed back to Majibush. And by the time they arrived in Majibush, they heard that the plague has actually stopped. They went to see their Rebbe, Ba'al Shem Tov Ha'Kadosh, and they asked him, Rebbe, what was the story of this man? Who was this drunkard? The Ba'al Shem Tov Ha'Kadosh said, this drunkard was not always like this. He used to be a very successful and wealthy businessman. There was a non-Jewish widow from a prominent family that was romantically interested in this businessman. She wanted him to leave his wife and live with her. And because she came from a prominent family, she used to be the wife of one of the ministers, she could offer this businessman really good business opportunities and even a position in the government to become one of the ministers. She came up with an idea, with a deal. She told the man, listen, you're gonna leave your wife and come to me, let's be together, and I'm gonna introduce you to all of the ministers and I can even make you a minister. She said, I'm gonna open a door to a whole new world of business opportunities for you. Just leave your wife and be with me. It was a tempting offer for the man, but he wasn't sure if she was honest, if she was actually going to do that. So he came up with an idea. He told the widow, listen, I accept it, but before anything happens between us, I want you to introduce me to the ministers so that I can see that you're real. This woman really had her eyes set on him. So she said, okay, no problem, I'm gonna do that. She threw a feast, she invited all of the ministers and all the important people in the government and introduced this man to them. Everything went well. And after the party was over, they headed home, meaning to her house. So that was their deal. She went to her room, waiting for this man to join her. As he was about to go to her room, he heard sounds of crying from the dungeon in her property. So he decided to go in and investigate what was going on. And after he went into the dungeon, he realized that these people were poor Jews who couldn't afford the heavy taxes that the non-Jewish government imposed on them. So he went to the lady and told her, listen, before anything happens between us, I have another condition. Let my people go. free these Jews. As I said before, this lady had really her eyes set on this man. So she said, okay, I'm gonna set them free. Take the carriage and just send them home. He did that. He set the prisoners free. Now everything was ready. As he was about to go to her room, he paused a little bit. He had this moment of stepping back and thinking what he was doing. When this man paused for a moment and asked this lady to set the Jewish prisoners free, he did a big mitzvah, the mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuim, or redeeming captives. The Talmud says that a good deed brings another good deed, and a transgression brings another transgression. This mitzvah that he performed made him to step back from the sin of illicit relations that he was about to commit. In that moment that he had this opportunity to sin, but he didn't, he was a tzaddik, and there was a big commotion in heavens. In the heavenly court, it was decided to reward this man with a gift, that whatever he says is gonna come true. But the accusing angel didn't want this, but it was already decided that this was going to be the reward. So the solution was that from now on, he would always be drunk, so that he will have no idea what's going on in the world. Now, I understand that there's a lot to unpack here. What is the heavenly court, and who's the accusing angel, and why he didn't want this reward? But that's not the point of the story, and definitely not what I want to talk about now. I think one big point is that whatever we see in a person or in a situation is like the tip of an iceberg. Only about 10% of an iceberg is above water. 90% is underwater. We don't see it. The Chassidim had no idea that this drunkard has this amazing gift that whatever he says would come true. But the Ba'al Shem Tov Ha'Kadosh knew it, and that was why he sent them to this drunkard. Another point I think is that the story beautifully illustrates how one mitzvah brings another mitzvah, and how one avera, a sin, can bring another sin. When everything is prepared for you to do a transgression, but you don't listen to your Yetzer Hara, and instead you do a mitzvah, you do a good deed, at that moment you're like a tzaddik. And this mitzvah will bring another mitzvah. When we go beyond our nature, Hashem will reward us with a gift that's beyond the nature. Amen v'amen.